Righty, ladies and gentlemen, we are back at it again. And of course, we're back at it with another discussion regarding WuWa's Endgame. And this is going to be a discussion over here that's meant to be a little bit more productive. Because naturally, right, the endgame has seen a lot of improvements. The tower adversity in the most recent reset, right? We're seeing the return of enemies like the Mech Abomination, right? Enemies like the Phalian Baringal. And when people's scores are getting, they're getting way more extra time to be able to get their 3 Dorito clears, all of that, most of the player base is in a good mood. Right? Because it's very clear that the developers have listened. They found out, okay, maybe people don't like facing the Nameless Explorer with like 4 million HP. So like, let's put him in floor 2 where he's a lot easier to handle, right? And stuff like that. And then of course, they kind of made a lot of the mobs easier to deal with. Specifically, putting in Space Trek Explorers instead of maybe, 2 ways of reindeers. The reindeers are still there, but they feel like they don't move around as much. It's safe to say that this iteration of the TOA is one of the best ones that we've had in a long time. However, there's still a very big glaring issue that I wanted to talk about over here, and that is this debuff. Or this buff, depending on how you view it. Enemies, all attribute resistance is increased by 15%. This effect is removed when the enemies are affected by negative statuses or tunability shifting. So basically, this is how this debuff works. If the enemy has all attribute resistance, you're dealing less damage to them. And it gets to a point where, to be able to muscle through that all attribute 15%, you have to either be using a team that is filled with old units, like maybe a Gion, that have a couple of sequence nodes, or you gotta be using, like, the top of the meta, most premium team imaginable. Otherwise, you simply do not have the damage to clear. But this is the other alternative. You could just use a team that has negative statuses or some type of tune debuff. That could be Hack, that could be Rupture with Imeth, or that could, of course, be Strain with Luke Herson. And any of those characters that are able to enable any of these archetypes, they just remove that resistance. But why don't we just go ahead and take a look at the roster over here real fast? Let me tell you who is able to remove this debuff. And let me explain to you why removing that debuff is important. Because it's just this easy to understand, ladies and gentlemen. If that debuff is there, you have teams, right, that are able to get reasonably close to clearing. Let me give you an example of one. Here we go. This is us in floor 3 of the TOA, right? And this is something that, naturally, a lot of players will realize they're banging their head against the wall, trying to get this clear, because this is where you'll eventually go. The 50% all attribute resistance makes it so that you get to, like, the final boss, you'll get them, right, to maybe, like, 1/3 or 1/2 of their HP left, and then you're just out of time. And so it kind of just makes it a place where, unless you're able to get rid of that debuff, you just can't use these older units. But now let me go ahead and show you all of the units on the roster that do make units like this playable, that do get rid of the debuff. Let's check it out. They have to be able to apply negative statuses or a tunability shifting. So let's go through it. Quick setup. So here are the eligible characters. She removes it. 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 She doesn't remove it. He removes it. She removes it. Every single one of her teammates removes it, but she personally does it. She removes it. She removes it. He does it. She doesn't. She doesn't. She doesn't. She doesn't. She doesn't. She does. She does. So let's look at it this way. Imagine that we're only looking at characters from 2.8 and beyond. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 out of the last 12 characters remove this buff by themselves. 10 out of the last 12 released units remove that buff. At this point, why is it even there if that many units that have just the last 12 units, 10 of them remove it? People are more likely to just use their newest units as well in the TOA, right? They're just way more likely to use those newer units too. And so when the end result kind of like is the characters people are using anyways are going to remove this buff, and people are more likely to use their newer characters because they're new and shiny. Why is it even there? You're giving like an incentive to use all of these new characters when like people are going to be using them anyways, and you already got the incentives for characters like Yang Yang specifically down here. And I guess the take for me really is just this. What's the point in restricting so many of the other units on the roster in this fashion. Especially during a time, guys, where you're rerunning all the old units. Guys, you're rerunning every single one of these characters, and none of these units can interact well with that TOA. Like, every single one of these characters cannot get rid of the buff. And you want to know the only units that actually have teams that can make do with that? You got Zhang Liao, who can be used with Mornier, Lene, right? I guess technically a lot of these characters can be used with Lene. And then Jian's over here, he's got his Chakota Arrow team. And that's basically it. You have made it so that the only way there are only like 2 1.x characters that can actually meaningfully engage with that buff. And not like grief their teams or run some weird ass team comps in the process. It just doesn't make that much sense to me while this banner is live to have such a restrictive buff where it's kind of just like, yeah, you have no chance of running any of the units you pull from this in the TOA. Oh, and I forgot. You can't even use Zhang Liao anyways because all the enemies are fucking Electro. My bad. My bad. I didn't even realize that. My bad. Yeah, you can't even fucking use Zhang Liao. They're all Electro. Can't even use Augusta either, so I guess they're out of the equation. So realistically, Jian is actually the only character who has a meta-viable team in this bullshit. I think that's just a terrible climate. I think that's just like a terrible situation for 6 characters currently live on banner to be in. They're not actually usable in the end game, and only one character is. It's the male one. Kuro Games is gay. This is proof. Why is only the male character viable in the end game? Because show me a Jinxie clearing this shit. Show me a Yinlin clearing this shit. Show me a Zhang Liao clearing this shit. Show me a Chang Li clearing this shit. They can't! And do you want to know what the most disgusting example of it is? Guys, it's not just these, like, older teams that are getting fucked over. You have some cult classics that actually just don't work anymore. Guys, this is what really got me fucked up. Look at the time on this Chang Li team. Holy shit. This doesn't clear anymore. Lupa, Brant, Chang Li doesn't clear anymore. Because they put in retarded the only reason why it can't clear is because of this. And there's just conveniently nobody on that team that can get rid of this debuff. Because, like, look. Look at where we end the stage. This is our last rotate. If that debuff isn't there, this clears. So this is the issue, right? As the HP increases, we are literally seeing teams get exiled out of viability when they were some of the best teams in the game before. And the end result now is that this has now become effectively a Zani team. The HP has gone to a level where this team can't clear baseline in floor 4 without quick swap. So it's a combination of HP going up and the 50% all attribute resistance. And is it good to have teams in the game where the only way they can clear is quick swap? No, it's not. But I think most people can say they're not going to blame Brant. They're not going to blame Chang Li. They're not going to blame Lupa for this. They're going to blame Kuro because they knew this shit was clearing real good back in the day. But now it can't because these buffs are stupid. This is stupid. Bro, 10 of the last 12 characters get rid of this shit. It's basically like, bro, this is just segregation. This is actually ageism. It's discrimination at this point. 10 of your last 12 units get rid of the debuff. This is basically just like, don't use anybody except the new units. Why? 10 of the last 12 of them already get rid of it. Why do you need the extra restrictions? What, you need more of an incentive to play new characters? Bro. Let's be real here. Do you need much more of an incentive to play the newer characters? Bro, no, you kind of don't, bro. They're good. Bro, they're strong. They're good. You'll just play them anyways. Do you need a 15% all attribute resistance? Do you need a 15% all attribute resistance handicap to force you to play these characters? No, they're all good. Bro, this is how many tier 0 units we have. Do we need more of a reason to play them? Kuro Games, you release strong characters and you don't like kick units out of viability. But guess what? What do you think's happening to your Unos, your Falovas, your Gal? What? The new units are already stronger. They already deal more damage at a baseline. Do you need the extra 15% to push them even more over the top? Because you know what this does? This just makes the power creep seem worse than it actually is. Because it doesn't matter what the actual power creep numbers are, right? If you're just basically told you can't use your older units, not because they don't deal enough damage, because we said they're not going to deal enough damage. This is basically just like adding a like minus 20% damage debuff to anybody that's not released after 2026. It's like, bro, if you weren't released after 2026, you deal less damage. Why? Because it's like the literal polar opposite of what they do in End State Matrix, where instead the older characters get buffs to make them deal more damage. In TOA, you get debuffs to deal less damage if you're an older character. What the fuck? Why is it the polar opposite in this game mode? They're both endgames. Why does one tell you, fuck you if you use older units, and the other one tells you, you're beautiful if you use older units? The logic is not there. And the logic is especially not there when the old units are all live on banner right now. This is truly the most confusing thing I've ever seen a company do, because the optics of it are like a joke. You make power creep seem worse than it is by literally nerfing old unit damage and then making every new unit literally do more. In TOA, you do the opposite in End State, and then all the old units that you're trying to monetize are on banner right now as you're actively nerfing them in the endgame. Bro, does this even make sense? Because this could hey, maybe it's this. Maybe this is their true goal. It's to tell people not to pull on this banner. Because I have a retard in chat saying, so this means this current reverb banner is predatory. So this is the thing. Imagine that you see a product on sale and you're told this product is not as good as the other ones. And the guys are explicitly telling you it's not as good as others. It's 10% off, but it's literally not as good as anything else. You can buy it if you want. If you choose to buy that, knowing that even the devs themselves are telling you they're not going to do well in the end game, because that's what that buff says. 1.x units are going to suck balls here, and you still pull, that's an IQ problem. Don't call it predatory because you're retarded. Bro, I can go out and do this. Guys, is me being able to buy all these stats, is that predatory? No, this would make me retarded. This is, the ability to do this isn't predatory. Me doing this simply means I'm a fucking retard. And guys, people drink shampoo and die. What do you want me to say here, bro? I don't need to talk more on this topic. They drink there's warning bottles, there's warning on the bottles because people drank shampoo and died. You can't protect somebody from their own stupidity this much. And in the same sense, when every side is telling you not to pull these fucking units and you still decide to pull them, you can't complain about how weak they are. And in the same vein, though, it just makes me wonder, why did they even design everything like this? It truly makes no sense at all. And hopefully, you guys can understand why. Because yes, the endgame did get better, but like, it could have been better than this because you just removed that debuff. And then the endgame is better for everybody. It is what it is. Let me know what you all thought about this breakdown. Peace out.